fucking great start. We should let this play out for like 30 seconds.
For dramatic effect.
Yeah. Gotta build into it. Turn it up a little bit, Paul.
I dig it.
Just gotta wait. I just gotta.
They're like, Blake's coming on the pod today. Edgelord of Bakersfield. Let's put on the edge of the song we can, you know?
That's good. That's good. And welcome back to episode 18 of Backhouse Productions. Our newest guest, Blake Burnard. What's going on?
Nada, man. Thank you for the opportunity.
You know, when we texted you earlier this week, I was like, there's no way. There's no way. I'm just thinking, like, what Grindhouse is doing right now, what you're building, I'm like, there's no way he has time for us. But the fact you responded fast, and really appreciate you coming on.
I appreciate you guys having me. It's easy fitting these things in because, I mean, looking back at how I started, it was just hitting people up on Instagram. You know what I mean? And so by the same token, it's like I'll freely give my time as I freely received it, you know, moving on up. And so it's a pleasure.
So you mentioned you did a podcast earlier, or you've done one before?
So I have my own. Yeah. So we run the House Blend podcast out of our facility, and it's primarily aimed at coaches, parents, athletes who are looking for, you know, that edge in athletic performance, trying to, you know, meld maybe disseminating like high level terminology and knowledge at a third grade reading level, you know, and hopefully so that people can kind of start to see, you know, they want that edge. How do they get it without listening to those goobers on, you know, Instagram or whatever, peddling whatever charlatan nonsense is getting them clicks and views, you know?
Mm-hmm, exactly. So what's kind of like, you know, we're kind of in parallel a little bit. Like you started in your garage as well.
Yes.
So, okay, let's just rewind a little back. You were a teacher at Centennial. Or was it at Centennial?
It was actually Golden Valley High School.
Golden Valley High School, okay.
Mm-hmm. So I was there for 2 years, and I was at Highland High School for 2 years.
Highland High School. Okay, so what happened? Like, what was going through your mind? Like, what made you switch? Like, hey, I'm not going to be a teacher anymore. I'm going to start this.
Sure. So full disclosure, I didn't get out of teaching because I hate teaching. There are a lot of teachers leaving for that reason. They got in for the wrong reasons. Mm-hmm. Like it was a fallback for them. I wanted to teach. Yeah. I love the classroom, and I want to lead with that because, I mean, especially with all the teachers leaving right now, I don't want to get misconstrued. Honestly, I taught until COVID, that 2020 year, where we stuck it out like from fall to spring, we were online for that entire year. That was my last full year of teaching. And honestly, it wasn't what I got into teaching for, because I mean, you know, you're dealing with, you're preaching to blacked out screens and kids with their mics muted, and they weren't getting anything out of it. Yeah. And then there's pressure on us as teachers to basically force feed them good grades. You know, so if the schools aren't impacted, they don't look bad. They still get their funding and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, man, this is what I got into teaching for. And at the time, we had just recently moved out of our garage by necessity. We had started, you know, the gym was blowing up. And so it was kind of an easy decision to just call my own shot and be like, you know, I'm going to go all in on this thing and see what happens. Because at the time, I was like, I determined that I could essentially reach as many lives in my facility, you know, of 100 kids than I could my 120 students through 6 periods at Highland High School. Yeah, you know, so that was kind of a no-brainer for me.
That's kind of interesting because I always thought about, like, as a student's perspective, like doing online schooling and just thinking how easy it is. But I can't even imagine like the teacher actually like explaining a lesson and nobody's there. Like you see nobody, you're talking to a blank screen. Like that's got to be the worst feeling ever.
Absolutely. And not only that, but, you know, it wasn't great for the kids. Yeah. And I was probably the only teacher in Bakersfield that was still seeing 100 students every day, although in a different setting, working out or whatever. And so I'm literally watching them deteriorate right in front of my eyes. Yeah. Kind of like, you know, mentally, I can't tell you how many. If I had 100 kids, I probably had 15 to 20 that told me privately they'd gotten on antidepressants, anxiety medications, all this kind of stuff, and all the while Kern High's just, you know, reluctant to open things back up, saying, oh, we're doing it for the kids. And I'm like, there's like this cognitive dissonance going on in my head, these two parts of Blake. One's like, you should be teaching, the other one's like, you're serving a master that's not serving the people they say they do. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it like changed my whole, it just went against who I am, you know, and so it made for a pretty simple decision and one I've never really looked back from.
So you thought, hey, I'm gonna start doing this. I'm gonna start Grindhouse because I'm gonna help someone else better than if I was just teaching online schooling. I can reach more kids. I can I can help them out more. And you said they're depressed. I mean, that happened. Yeah, we experienced it all. Us being seniors in high school when it happened. Like I see that. Yeah, like that affected a lot of kids. And and you hear now like what working out, what exercise does for someone's like mental health.
Sure.
Too. So like it's interesting that you decided to do that to help kids out. Like the reach.
Just to be completely honest, that wasn't why I started.
Yeah,
okay?
no,
it was a little
but
bit more selfish than that.
Yeah, I'm sure. But like also to that point, like
right.
You wanted to be a teacher for the right reasons, right?
Yes.
So you're going into
100%.
something else with the right reason. You want to help people out.
Yeah, the whole reason why we started in our garage in the first place was just to keep mama at home with the babies, to be honest with you. Like we didn't want anybody else raising our kids, be it, daycare or babysitter or whatever, and having to vet their character and what they're going to press upon my children. That just wasn't us. And so we made the decision to keep her at home, and I started training my coworkers, my fellow teachers, admin, principal, out of my garage, neighbors. Mm-hmm. And so it was very much fitness oriented to start. And then right when COVID hit, that March, when it was still 2 weeks to slow the spread, I had reached out to, Coach Renz at Liberty, Coach Cornford at Ridgeview at the time, Bandy at Frontier, just guys that I knew from when I played. And I was like, hey, we got 2 weeks. Your kids don't have a weight room, and I've got this like way too expensive garage gym that needs to be used. So why don't you send me like some kids that are of high character that I don't have to worry about them being in my home, and I'll train them for these 2 weeks. And then one thing led to another. 2 weeks became 4 weeks. 4 weeks became 8 weeks. And we just kept grinding. And I was like, well, I don't know when this is going to end, so we probably should retest. Mm-hmm. And we retested. And I had about 18 kids from Liberty at the time. I think I had 3 from Frontier and maybe 1 from Centennial. And I mean, it was a packed house. They had all brought friends and stuff like that because they were enjoying it. And so we retested, and the average 40-yard dash came down in 8 weeks, 2.5, 3/10 of a second, I can't remember off the top of my head. The average vertical jump went up 4.5 inches. Sumo deadlifts went up, I think the average 92 pounds, and then their average box squat went up, I think 85. And so we were all looking around like we're all shocked. We're like, oh, we got crazy progress like this in a garage. And I go, yeah. I mean, I knew that was going to happen. Exactly. I was just surprised that they were. Uh-huh. And I go, so, Drew, I don't know how much longer I can do this for free. Would your parents like pay for this? And they're like, hell yeah, we would. And
you're thinking like, damn, I'm pretty good at this. So maybe I should get charged.
Honestly, just kind of, because it was always like a, I guess, I was, my side hustle in college was writing meal plans for people, and frat girls that wanted to lose some extra weight and stuff like that. And I was always a meathead. It interested me. So it was just kind of like a hobby reading up on this stuff. But I think the thing that saved me early on was I have a really good BS meter. So like I wasn't listening to the wrong people. And then the Lord just kind of like just surrounded me with some amazing dudes, amazing mentors, the guys who freely gave their knowledge to me, Louis Simmons, Brandon Bird, Jared Bidney, these guys that have been, now I know they're the best performance coaches in America. Mm-hmm. And, those were my first influences. So I like to believe that my circle has been kept close from day one, a little bit tighter than most, but I think it helped, and our kids were the direct beneficiaries of that. And so after that eight week mark, we started getting cease and desist letters from the city because our neighbors didn't like us dragging sleds and blaring gangster rap out of our garage with the doors open. And so we started looking at warehouses. The perfect one fell in our lap right down the street from Liberty High School. It helps to be first in any area, and so we plopped ourselves right next to where all of our kids were at, and the rest is history. We've kind of always prioritized results first, relationships second, and ultimately, being honest with people and treating them right and just making sure that we set very clear expectations. And so that expectation that they come in, they know if they execute the X's and O's, they get X result. Making it predictable and quantifiable is a really easy sell. You know what I mean?
So in those 8 weeks, what were you guys doing so differently? That like seeing those scores go way up.
Sure.
Like what were you guys doing?
That's a great question. So understand that a lot of these kids had been to other facilities in the past, but had burned out for one reason or another. Or maybe they'd gone to a place that opted to shut down during COVID, right?
Yeah.
And so we got to just kind of have no distractions or nobody. We're not competing with the high school English teacher that also wants to be in the weight room and they think they should control everything about these kids' development. We weren't competing for resources. And so that was a big part of it. They were able to recover from the work that we were doing, and therefore we were able to take a little bit more liberty in the way that we trained them without having to be super cautious, right? Mm-hmm. Or thinking about what other people's plans were for them. And so to that end, I can tell you a couple of the stimuli that they weren't getting at school or they weren't getting at these other facilities were, we lift our kids heavy. We're not afraid. We don't hold their hands. We want to make sure they're safe. Yes, I'm not going to put them under a barbell if they're, if their squat looks like a dog shitting razor blades. I'm not going to do it, right? Yeah. But once they've earned that right, we push it, and so immediately, we were introducing more max effort stuff, everything over 90%. If you want to improve force production, the only way you're going to do that is by lifting heavy things. It's the body is so resistant to change and adaptation, it doesn't want to. If it did, I could get stronger and faster just by sitting in this chair. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. And so we had to introduce things like that. I didn't want to spend, because again, I didn't know how long I'd have them. I thought it was only 2 weeks to begin. I wasn't doing Olympic lifting with them. I was like, I don't want to have to harp on you guys about power clean form. You go walk into any high school or college in Bakersfield and you see the way they power clean. It's not super pretty. Mm-hmm. It's not, the kids are not getting everything their coaches say they should be getting out of them because it's too hard technically. If you go watch like the Summer Olympics, those guys have been doing Olympic weightlifting their entire lives and they would be the first ones to tell you they're not experts at it. So why would I put a 16-year-old under that same thing? Yeah, it doesn't make sense. Totally. But I can get the same stimulus from having them jump on a box or do a vertical or a broad jump or whatever. We still achieve the same triple extension. We do it weighted. Now we're working on power production, a whole bunch of things. But that was a big one. None of those guys had jumped before, but we know how to do it since we're 3 years old. Yeah. So that was a no-brainer. And then additionally, from a macro point of view, we attack weaknesses. It's not like an arbitrary we're going to squat, bench, deadlift, and that's all we're going to do. Mm-hmm. We're also not going to turn into a bodybuilding session. Mm-hmm. The sets and reps for like how we bring up weaknesses might look like bodybuilding, but it's not the stuff that you'd see anybody like your teammates doing at Body Exchange. We're destroying the glute complex, their hips, their hamstrings, lower back, and upper back, because I want them built like, I want to look at their spinal erectors and see two freaking bands of rebar, going into their butt. Because like Louis Simmons popularized this quote, and he said, "I've never been a strong or fast person with a small ass." You know what I mean? I think that's really indicative of the way our kids should be training. But instead, you walk in any weight room, all they're doing is a bunch of push, a bunch of squat, and they don't have any of the machinery nor the coach's expertise to actually diagnose what they're seeing when a kid fails and be able to say, that body part's lagging. Let's bring that up till it's a strength and see if your sprint times improve. And so by focusing on the correct things from day one, we're able to make an accurate assessment from which we can dictate, what the rest of their training will look like until it improves. You know what I mean? And so we've had a pretty good track record of addressing things that way.
Wow. So you're saying broad jump, like broad jumping does the same amount as just normal power cleaning. Like you can get the same benefit, if not better, with just teaching kids how to broad jump.
100%. And there are, we're big proponents of the vertical jump because the vert mat gives you instantaneous feedback. Hey, this is how high you jumped, right? And I can eyeball that thing and tell them exactly what's lacking. Mm-hmm. And there are some studies that show very clearly you're able to outperform. I believe it's all of them, but the hang clean in wattage, which is power output, right? Yep. Just with a vertical jump. And how we could do a vertical jump seminar right after this. I can get each one of you guys jumping perfectly in 5 minutes.
Okay.
But how long would we have to hang out with a PVC pipe to teach you guys how to snatch or power clean correctly?
Way longer.
You see a lot of 4-year starters. They're seniors in high school and they still look like dog shit. Yeah. In the weight room, we don't have time for that because we're a private facility and we don't do contracts or any of that stuff. Some kids are here this month. They're not here the next month. So I got to get them results now. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Are they? So what are your thoughts on just reps? Like you're going to give someone a workout. You said you're going to give them high weight or heavy weight. Are you going anything more than 5 reps at a time? Or are you making them go, I don't know, 60, 70%, go 12 reps?
That's a great question. So it depends on what we're doing, and it depends on, the goal. So obviously different rep schemes lifted with, intention and, what's the word I'm looking for? Sincere efforts is ultimately going to dictate, the product. And so ultimately the way our typical session runs is we're going to work on speed and power while they're fresh. I don't want them doing, you see it all the time. They're doing power cleans while they're tired. That's essentially CrossFit. That's not training for football, right? We want them doing fast, more technically demanding things when they're fresh so they can do them well and improve on them. So we start every workout with, we're going to sprint first. That's the most physically demanding thing that you can do. It's your body actually produces around 7 times more ground reaction forces during an all-out sprint than it would under a 1 times body weight back squat.
Yeah.
So which one's more dangerous, lifting or running?
Lifting.
Yeah. No. Wait. Sprinting. Which one do you pull your hamstrings in?
Sprinting. Running. Oh yeah, running. Yeah.
So we want to do that while they're fresh.
Okay.
If we do it while they're fatigued, there's a higher incidence of injury. Okay. And not only that, the only thing that makes you faster is running 100%. Mm-hmm. So if they're running dog tired, they're only going to improve their ability to run dog tired. That doesn't matter to me. So ultimately, our sprints, we feed the cats. So we train our kids like cats, not dogs, which means we do not condition them because that only makes them slower. We only run fast.
Wait, hold on. Conditioning makes them slower.
100%.
Just because they get tired from it.
No. What speed are they running at when they're conditioning?
That's true. Okay, so they're going to slow down. They're not going to go maximum effort.
Maybe like 50%.
Yeah,
they're dead beat when they're conditioning.
Yeah,
I just ran some full fields, like hundreds, with my rugby team. How fast can you run 100? And you're probably like saving yourself too because you got 10 of them, right? It's like 40,
you're probably going
50%.
Like,
that makes you really good at running 40-50%. If you're a marathon runner, that's excellent. And when you guys start to think about things this way, you understand why there's not a lot of speed in Bakersfield. Mm-hmm. Why? Because every football team conditions their kids in the name of mental toughness, and they don't realize that all they're doing is digging a deeper ditch recovery-wise that their kids can't dig out of. They're always banged up. They always have a nagging knee injury or a hamstring or whatever because they're focusing their efforts on things that are not actually going to make them better on the field, right?
Holy
and they're like,
shit.
well, fourth quarter time, guys, the only thing that gets you better in the fourth quarter is playing football till the fourth quarter. That is the most sports-specific thing you can do is playing football. So why are we wasting our time pounding the pavement? Right?
Yeah.
Now, let me tell you why that happens. Okay. Number one, in the 50s and 60s, all of America's research went into the heart health fad. Okay. There was a lot of money in that. Mm-hmm. So naturally, all of our research went towards heart health. That's aerobic capacity, aerobic fitness.
Yeah.
Okay. So our great grandparents were preached, it's all about the heart. It's all about lung capacity. It's all about all that stuff, right? And that made its way into all the university systems and trickled down to the high schools, okay? Now, fast forward to 2022, our coaches still condition us like dogs because, I like to put it this way. Your great-grandmother cooked.
Yeah.
Okay? She taught your grandmother how to cook. Your grandmother was also a cook. She taught your mom how to cook. Your mom was a cook. She taught you how to cook. The problem was your great-grandmother was a shitty cook.
Oh, fuck.
So what kind of a cook are you?
Shitty.
Same thing with
awful.
Conditioning and training.
It totally makes so much more sense now, the way you're putting it.
And it's like the red pill, blue pill thing, right? Because you can, the vast majority of the West, America, is still on that fad because it's all that they know. It's not, you can't fault people for, what they do and don't know until they've been presented with the truth. Right. And so there's a lot of literature coming out right now and has been for decades, actually. It's just they turn a blind eye to it. And how many high school football coaches do you know that are reading this kind of stuff?
No,
a lot of them still get their stuff off CrossFit.com or bodybuilding.com. So what do they need to read research for?
It's so funny. I remember in high school, just our coaches looking up workouts, and it was like from one of those websites, CrossFit.com. How do you get them moving? How do you get them tired?
Especially senior year because we had goal, and that was like just be conditioned. Condition is the number one thing. And I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't some of the best shape of my life then.
Yeah.
I could have run forever.
So here's my rebuttal to that. If you had a full team of sub 5 40-yard dash, like even your linemen are running 4.9s, the game's over at halftime.
Yeah.
Okay. Your third and fourth stringers are getting in the fourth quarter. So why do we need to be so conditioned? I thought the only thing that mattered was points.
Yeah.
So it's a different way of thinking about it.
It is,
right?
definitely.
So at Grindhouse, we train for outputs, okay? Maximal outputs. I'm just trying to make the freakiest, and we're talking about the power sports, right? Like we're not talking about marathon runners. We would train them a little bit differently. My combat sport athletes, they need to have some endurance to last those 3-5 rounds, right? It's a little bit different. But when we're talking about the main sports we get, those are football, volleyball, and baseball. It's just, I only care what you can do one time.
Yeah.
I want you to put a guy on his ass one time. I want you to catch that ball. And let's face it, if you're running 100 yards in a game, something either went really well or really bad. So,
it is one or the other.
What are we training that for?
You know what? It's actually, I agree with you, actually, just because every time, like, we train over the summer and we work out really hard. And then once you get to football season, you lose it all immediately, right? Yeah. I'm out of shape during football season right now. Like, I can't wait till after football season where I can actually start working out again, actually getting back into shape. But, like, that makes sense. It's a point because you don't really have to be in that great of, like, condition to play a game unless you're maximum effort, unless you get faster, then everything that's what translates, right? If I can get out of the pocket and I can run, I got that speed from just sprinting 100% all the time instead of just me, I don't know, just not really practicing maximum effort, just kind of like trying to stay in shape where I'm going to be not as fast.
Mm-hmm. And that's called speed reserve. So exactly what you just described. Basically, if you improve what your 100% is, so like let's say your 100% is running 18 miles an hour. Mm-hmm. Well, you improve that to 21. How much easier is it to run what used to be your max?
Way easier.
That's a percentage now. It's like 85%, right? Yeah. So now my maintenance, like if I just want to, just kind of like keep up with someone down the field, it's like light work. Yeah. It used to be my all out. I'd be gassed, have to go to the sideline and get a wash. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So that stuff matters. And so when we're like, hey, the best way to improve conditioning, and we deal with this with our cross country athletes, they're like, hey, I'm running for 30 minutes at a time, whatever the case may be. I'm like, okay, you still need to improve force production because the more force you can produce per step, the more ground you're going to cover. You're pushing more. You are going to save more energy going half speed, and things like that. They actually have more in the tank, not because they're better conditioned, but because their maximum potential, their maximum output is so much higher. The bar, the standard just got raised, and everything below it improved. So that's why we say, hail strength. Strength is king. Strength is the mother of all strengths. Why? Because it's the rising tide that raises all ships. It's everything improves when your strength improves. Until you get to like that elite, like when we start preparing for NFL Combine and stuff like that, then we have to get a little bit more specific and really work on like, all right, you're strong enough, now let's get you fast, let's get it transferred, right? Mm-hmm. But the average high school athlete, the vast majority of who's at Grindhouse, they're not there yet. So why mess around with that stuff?
You got to develop them first.
Absolutely.
God,
I'm so sorry. I got off on a tangent. You asked about rep ranges. I told you I could talk.
Dude, no, but like that was a great point.
I told you I could talk. I'm so sorry. Okay, so
it's awesome.
We start with our sprints, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, and this is the weirdest thing for a lot of our new athletes is getting them to understand that running maximally is the only thing that matters. Like when it pertains to getting fast. So the first thing that gets them really excited is I go, we're not going to run gassers. We're not doing any of that conditioning stuff. You're not going to be doing endless burpees or whatever it is. So we'll hit 2 to 4 max effort sprints, sometimes contrasted with some external resistance, whether it's sleds, bands, our Exergenies. I'm looking into some sick equipment right now that costs way too much money to add more ways to resist those sprints. We go straight from that into 20 to 40 jumps. The variations change daily because we run a conjugated approach. Our kids don't get used to anything, so they're constantly making progress. Those jumps are usually in sets of 3 to 5, 6 to 8 sets. Okay. And then after all the explosive stuff is done, we'll get into the main lift of the day, or lifts. There's 1 or 2. Mm-hmm. And depending on the theme of the day, and the weakness of the athlete, if they're ready for it, we'll do some maximal work or slightly sub-maximal where it's 85% above. That's some heavy stuff. We hit those kinds of weights twice a week. And then the other 2 times of the week, we either hit, depending on what the kid needs, we'll do more, power development where it's moving sub-maximal weights at maximal speeds. Okay, so we're blessed to have a bunch of Tendo units where we can track bar velocities and we really dial in where those intensities should be, and also make sure that our kids are moving fast enough to improve. Or we do more like what kids are probably used to, which is repeated effort. If a kid's got to put mass on, the only way they're going to do that is volume, reps, right? Yeah. So the thing where most, and then after that, the rep ranges get higher as we go along. So after that, we would do anywhere from 8 to 15 reps on movements that are going to build that main, right? So it's think of it like a feeder. At the top, you've got the things you want to see improved, and everything below that. So on the tail end of the session, that back half is going to feed up into the top because we're raising weaknesses and developing special strengths that are going to transfer, right? So as things go on, the volume gets greater, and they're ending with hundreds of reps of bands or reverse hypers or whatever the heck it may be, working on strength, endurance, and everything in between. So ultimately, I think where most coaches screw up is they either go, way too intense all the time, and that burns their kids out, or they are afraid to do anything with them, right? And they don't want to put a bar on their back. They don't want to do this, that, and the other. And they just have them doing bodybuilding workouts, and that's not good enough to get them better either. So we meet them in the middle, and we follow what's called the 80-20 rule. So 20% of the time, we're doing that maximal barbell work. And then the rest of the stuff is like building that, but not through use of the barbell. So it's not beating our kids up. We're using dumbbells, kettlebells, bands, ATPs, all of our specialized equipment, that kind of stuff. But it's easier to recover from, and therefore they can keep chugging along and making progress year round because they're chasing records on movements that matter and not a bunch of fluff and buff with a barbell that'll beat up their joints and, ultimately probably turn them into more of power lifters than athletes who have to be fresh on the field.
Yeah.
I just want to say this, like when someone wants to start a business or do something, like it's going to be pretty successful if you're good at, or you know what you're talking about. And I'm not shocked at all that you're doing what you're doing because you know a lot of shit. Like this is groundbreaking just hearing everything you're saying right now. But okay, so I want to get into when you first moved into that building, what were like the first steps of like marketing yourself? How do you get your name out there? How do you get the right people to join? What are you thinking?
That's a great question. This is not going to be the most satisfying answer in the world. And I don't know if like the aspiring business entrepreneur out there, like they may not enjoy this answer. I didn't really have a plan.
Okay.
So ultimately, like I said earlier, like I just focused on a couple key things. We were honest with people, we took care of them, and we got them the results they were paying for, right? Mm-hmm. And as a result, they brought their friends. So it wasn't like any clever marketing or anything like that. It was kind of that old principle of like people like us do things like this. Yeah. And they ended up bringing great people like them. So the people who stuck around brought people like them. And when you talk about like having the right people in there, we're really big on culture. So like it's a very competitive atmosphere. We never have to really, we don't beg our athletes to show up. It's very much they're expected to, and they honor the expectation. Not only that, we're pretty expensive. I mean, that's a great way of weeding people out too. We're not the $50, throw some speed ladders out at the park and have them run around for an hour and collect the money. Yeah. That's not us. We attract serious families, people who really want what they say they want to achieve, right? And very driven people. And so every once in a while, we do get someone in the building that doesn't belong, and it's like when I was teaching, there's like a step process, like escalating consequences, right? Mm-hmm. First time, first offense, whether it's like they're missing a lot of training or maybe they're not just giving great effort and they're kind of bringing down the average, like the culture thing. Yeah. We kind of pull them aside in the weight room and just like, hey man, what's up? We give them the benefit of the doubt. It's a get curious, not furious thing. It's like, I want to know what's going on because these kids have so many things pulling them so many different directions, especially in the 21st century. Like we got to make sure everything's good at home, everything's good in class. They're not, they didn't just get grounded from their truck, and they're stressed out and all this stuff. Like I want to make sure that they're taken care of. And if, depending on how that conversation goes, I'm like, all right, well, this is what we've identified that they need to be fixed, right? Because ultimately you said you wanted this thing, and no matter what's going on outside, like we got to chase this thing. And I was like relating it to if they're having a tough time at home, like fastest way to get out of your house, getting a scholarship. So let's focus up, you know? And second offense, I call them into my office with my other coaches. I'm like, hey, this is still going on. What is going on? Okay, final warning. Third time it happens, we kick them out. And I think that's one thing that a lot of facility owners and even business owners are afraid to do. You go to the donut shop and they have that like Sharpied sign that says we reserve the right to refuse service to anyone. Yeah, we take full advantage of that. Yeah, because if we let the wrong people in, especially with we're private, we don't have a lot of members. Like compared to other facilities, I don't want everyone. I only want the people who are going to get me numbers. And add flags to my wall. And people that I can legitimately impact their lives. If they're not going to show up, I can't impact anyone. So we have a tally on the record board. It's like unnamed tally marks. There are 7 of them right now of people that we have verbalized like you are not allowed back at Grindhouse.
Like you write their names up?
No. Oh, they're unnamed tally marks. But the kids love it when I go over there and add with the chalk and they're like, ooh, like who was it, coach? And at the end of the day, I don't want to attract anyone with a heartbeat and a credit card. Yeah. I only want to attract people who are going to honor their commitments, and ultimately add to our facility, right? And I don't think enough people have the balls to do that. And let's be honest, balls or none, a lot of people don't start in this industry with like a financial backing like I did teaching, right, where they can make call shots like that.
Yeah.
Right. I was very fortunate to have like that to feed my family, and I could be as liberal and crazy with my business as I wanted to. And so I was able to take a ton of risks that a lot of people can't. And I understand that too. But at the end of the day, that's a huge thing that makes it what it is.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. You're only as strong as your weakest link.
100%.
Yeah.
All right. So you played at Saddleback College. I don't know how I feel about that, just being at BC, but
Probably pretty sad.
huh? Yeah. I mean, I wish we played them actually.
I know.
It'd be nice.
How was your time at Saddleback? You said you were there for 3 years?
Yeah, so my first year I kept popping hamstrings, and so I redshirted. And honestly, it was probably the truest college experience I had, just because, like, you know, it was bankrolled by my parents. I don't know why they agreed to do it, because I was a total knucklehead at the time.
Yeah.
And I got into so much trouble back home. They were like, we just got to get you around new friends, you know. And so it was kind of, I definitely didn't deserve it, but it worked out that way. And honestly, it was the best growing experience I could have had, because I spent the first summer out of high school with Coach Chudy at BC.
Okay.
And honestly, I really enjoyed it. Trying to think of the coaches that were there, like Bolton. I don't know a lot. Dean was there.
Dean had to be there.
Dean was there. I don't remember a lot of the others though. Those are the ones I was with the most. Yeah. And honestly, it was a really weird time in my life. I just needed to get out. I needed to mature, you know what I mean? And so moving away from home was the fastest, most efficient way to do that. Just like, hey, you got to cook for yourself, figure out your money thing, all that kind of stuff. Figure out how to be a good student too, and not have anybody do your homework for you.
Yeah.
It was the best, you know? And so my experience there was, I learned how to be professional. My coaches and my mentors there really took me under their wing, and identified something in me that resulted in, you know, a lot of time spent talking about how to be a man, you know, and things that I don't know that I would have gotten here. Like, I have amazing parents, but we didn't have those conversations. You know what I mean? And so that, and then my next 2 years at Henderson, you know, were really formative, I would say, in who I am today.
I'm just trying to understand like what your values are at Grindhouse. It's kind of like you have a football background, so it kind of makes sense like why you feel the same way with like, we don't want anybody dragging ass.
Yep.
Like, we don't need those people, and it makes sense. Like, that's football background. Like, but God, I don't even. You said you weren't even. You were a good student, or you weren't?
I was not in high school.
You were not in high school.
So yeah, I was committed to play at Fresno State my senior year, and
you were committed for football. Play Fresno State.
Yep.
Okay.
So I was playing defensive tackle at the time, and like I said, I was a knucklehead. I thought that being a good athlete would result in teachers giving me grades.
Yeah.
Found out the hard way that is not how it works. And so I would have gotten away with it too if it hadn't been for that political science teacher. You know?
There's only one teacher.
Well, it was the best thing for me, because again, like I said about, you know, San Diego, if I would have gone, I would have been that kid that ended up right back home after winter break, just like strung out, or, you know, just partying his ass off. Like, I was not ready for college. And so ultimately, you know, it was a wake-up call for me. I was like, you know, you have to learn how to be a professional in all areas of your life. And that was where I kind of determined, wrote the mantra on my forehead of like, how you do anything is how you do everything. It's a shopping cart principle. If you're that guy that leaves a shopping cart out at Vaughn's, you're gonna cut corners elsewhere in your life too. And it's the same message I preach to my kids. You can't just be like one-dimensional. You have to be who you are, like an honest representation of you and your values in everything you do, not just the things that are convenient. You know what I mean? So playing football was super convenient, and I had to learn how to do the school thing too, probably later than most kids, but it is what it is.
So this epiphany that you had, what was the thing that made you realize that? What was there had to be something that happened to you?
We were playing BHS and my senior year, and they were rolling, we were rolling, we were fresh off going to Valley, and we had really high expectations for the team. And right before BHS, it was that Friday afternoon, I'll never forget it. Got the call from our AD and saying I couldn't play. I was academically ineligible, and I had to stand in front of my team and tell them, guys, I won't be going to war with you tonight or anymore. And that was probably the most pain and embarrassment I've ever felt in my life, you know, because it was so easily preventable. You know, if I would have just put forth any effort, I probably could have made it work, you know. And ultimately, I am the guy that I pride myself on making mistakes probably faster than anyone else I know, but I don't make them twice.
Yeah.
So, you know, at the end of the day, it was for my development. I absolutely needed it.
Wow. JP, you got anything?
No, I totally get where you're coming from on that. I had an incident going into my sophomore year. I was supposed to be starting center on varsity. I got in trouble up at school, and I had to tell the entire football team that I wasn't going to be able to play.
Right. This one's kind of funny though.
It
was what was it, like the Jewel thing?
Yeah, it was awful. I was with two seniors. I was with two seniors, and one of them was supposed to go and play D1 football, but he sucked. So I had to take, as our head coach said, I took the fall on the sword. So I was the one that kind of like, hey, you're going to be the guy. You're going to take the blame for it. But thank God I was able to play week 1, and it just sucks because I missed 2 scrimmages, and it was the worst thing going up in front of the team and telling them, like, hey, like you said, like, I'm not going to be able to go to war with you. I don't know when I'm going to come back, but you boys got to do it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it hurts, but, you know, at the end of the day, I think that those things that probably cut the deepest also have the greatest opportunity to change you for the better. And it sounds like you did it for honorable reasons. You know what I mean? Like, that's pretty tight, dude. I know, and kudos. I don't know a ton of guys that would do that. You know, and probably less and less with each passing year. So, because I see kids. So
there's no way I would have done that.
Yeah,
there's absolutely no way.
Well, the thing is, I really didn't have a choice.
Yeah,
I really didn't have a choice. I was a sophomore on varsity. They were like, you have to do this. I'm like, oh fuck. I'm like, all right, might as well then. Thank God I didn't have to miss the entire season. They thought about it. They were like, you know what, we're just gonna put you on JV this entire year. And I was like, fuck.
Yeah.
But no, didn't end up that way, which is very nice.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
So I got the most pressing question right now. Why is Grindhouse spelled the way Grindhouse? Like, why the
I think
HU?
it's so badass.
I know, it's awesome. I was just like curious, like, what made you pick that or spell it like that?
Okay, I am not German. Okay.
Yeah.
The umlaut A actually just came from. Okay, I said I didn't have a plan for marketing, but I did want to be different.
Yeah.
And it all goes back to starting in my home, right? So we were called this. I had put this decal, like we have that fat mural in the gym. We had one like that in my garage too, and we now have one in our other facility, and yada yada yada. So I'm like really big on big, bold, different, and names are hard too. So it just stuck with me. Like, I don't know if you guys are familiar with like Quentin Tarantino-esque like Grindhouse movies. Are you guys familiar with that?
Yeah. Like all of them.
Yeah, so like the Grindhouse movies, that gritty, like almost horror kind of genre, I like that. And so I was like, again, the edgelord came out. I was like, all black, all white, umlaut A, and I get asked all the time, are you German? I'm like, no, I'm probably like disgracing someone in the Eastern Bloc right now. But you know what? It works, and people don't forget it. So I think we probably made the right decision.
That's awesome. I mean, I love it. I love the dots. The dot, like, it makes me think about Grindhouse differently than if it was just spelled house.
I appreciate that. Mission accomplished.
It like makes me think like, okay, that's cool.
It's like wearing glasses. Total meathead could wear glasses, and they're like, oh, that guy's like got a high IQ. No. It's like we're still meatheads.
Yeah.
We just have 2 dots over our A. You know what I mean?
I love it though. I love it. All right, what are we doing on time?
37.
37. Okay. Where do you see Grindhouse in 5 years from now?
That's a great question, man. Hopefully still doing what we're doing. I mean, we continue to evolve our programs. I take a lot of pride in the fact that we do not stay still. And I truly believe the minute you stop moving, you're dead. You know, and so we're constantly looking for ways to improve. But the heart of what we will be doing in 5 years is still the same as it is right now. Ultimately, we want to get people what they're paying for and hopefully far exceed that expectation. And secondly, just help, give these kids what they need. We can't guarantee that they have amazing home lives. We can't guarantee that they have it all figured out in terms of girls, guys, whatever. And we just want Grindhouse to be a kind of an outlet for them to be themselves. We don't allow parents in our facility. That's really different.
You don't allow parents?
Heck no.
I like that.
I'm right down the street from Liberty High School, man. I don't want to attract every helicopter parent in Rosedale.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we've had a couple that they want to hang out and mad dog our coaches and our kids, and then it's always bad when you tell a kid to do something and they immediately like shoot over to dad, like, is this okay? And I'm like, let us coach. You know what I mean? And so we don't allow that. we want our kids to be comfortable, and ultimately, you know, a comfortable, happy, fulfilled athlete is a highly effective athlete. It's the ones that are like, you know, always worried about external things, whether it's what their buddies think or whatever, that really struggle. And they're focused too much on that than actually getting better. And so ultimately we want that place to be a haven where it's like the minute you step in our doors, it's go time. We're here to grow, you know, both interpersonally as well as like in an external fashion, the physiological side of things, you know. And I think as long as we do that, everything else will kind of work itself out. I don't have any desire to like own multiple facilities or anything like that. I think that like as you ascend, honestly, I don't even want to move. Like we have the best location already, so why would we go, you know? There are all kinds of things that would keep me in the place we're at, but ultimately I just want to make sure that we're still doing right by our people, and we are very, very effective in our mission, which is ultimately getting people what they want.
Wow, that's great. That's awesome. Well, okay, you said you want to be in one spot. That's, I mean, why not? You could get a hand roll from Con Pie. It's right there.
That's right.
You ever go to Con Pie?
No, we frequent Sugar Twist though.
Oh, okay,
yeah,
Sugar Twist.
Yeah. I'm a big Baconator guy.
Baconator.
Yes. So anybody listening to this, I accept donations freely, and it's just really nice. We're kind of in the middle of all the schools that we serve the most of, you know, and so it's really easy, really accessible. And like a lot of our kids ride their bikes. I think that's sick. You know what I mean? I didn't have that opportunity at the place I trained at in high school, so it's neat.
Do you have any like, I don't know, like how do you eat? Like, do you teach a way of like eating healthier, or is there something that you?
I did see that on your guys' webpage that you actually have like 10 meals, I believe. Yeah,
so that's like a freebie, right? We don't want it. Nutrition shouldn't be confusing, and so like my wife and I are both certified and everything. She actually has a multinational level business where she does this remotely for like people all over the world, and that used to be mine, but I got too busy with the gym, and so I gave it to her, and she's freaking killing it. Now, as far as within Grindhouse, everything we do involves some degree of nutritional support. So whether it's people trying to lose weight, they can't out-train a bad diet, so they got to figure that out. Yeah. Our kids say they want to be high-level athletes, but then aren't recovering well, they're not sleeping right, that kind of stuff. Well, we know the food that goes down their gullet is probably the most important thing. Mm-hmm. And so we would be remiss to not offer things like that. So our base-level programming always involves an offer of some sort, but at the end of the day, like, we're limited in who we can reach with that, because like, we can't make the food for them. Yeah. We can't force them to eat it. We can't have them put down their hot Cheetos and nacho cheese, you know? So a lot of the time, yes, like, is there a right way to eat, right? Mm-hmm. I think that's what you asked.
Yeah, is there...
It's not rocket science, man. It's Whole Foods. Like, mm-hmm. I believe, like, you know, if you just look ancestrally, modern eating has really only, like, the processed stuff that fills our pantries has only been around for, like, the last 60, 70 years. But humans have been on this earth for thousands. So how did we live before the Industrial Revolution, before like cereals became a thing and all that? It was what came from animals and came from the earth. So I'm like, kids, this is not the most exciting diet. And they always ask me about supplements and stuff. I'm like, eat a steak. You know what I mean? That stuff's not sexy, mm-hmm. but it's definitely not easy either. But for the parents who care, and we have a lot of families that care, we're like, hey, we got to fix first, mom and dad, what you're bringing into the home. And then kids have some self-control and stop eating like a toddler. You know what I mean? And ultimately, usually that looks like not the biggest things that we help troubleshoot with our kids are not skipping breakfast. That's like a cardinal sin if you want to perform well, both for hormonal, metabolic reasons, as well as just energy levels, you know? And then eating more protein and hydrating properly, because a lot of these kids drink things that they think are going to aid them, like Gatorade, which is a glorified candy bar in liquid form. It has next to no electrolytes in it, despite their clever marketing. Or they think that, you know, a liquid IV right before practice is going to save them. Mm-hmm. No, they need to like change drinking all the time. He's got the right idea right here. And so, and then the protein one's really big for all of our kids, because every kid wants to gain weight and get yacked, but they eat like birds, and they're like, I can't eat anymore, I'm stuffed. I'm like, okay, you should probably get 1,000 calories in your belly before 8 a.m. That'd probably like give you a jump start, huh? And so it's kind of wild. They don't always like hearing it, and that's what I say. Like, they have to be receptive to doing what we say. But again, that buy-in is one of those requisite things that we require of all of our athletes. So some of them come around a little bit sooner than others, but most of them get on the board by the time they're upperclassmen.
Nice. What are your thoughts on Liver King?
I don't know a lot about
because you said the fitness guys, they're kind of fake. I mean, that guy's definitely on steroids, but
his abs are pretty. I would kill for abs like that.
You think they're natural?
No, I don't.
No way. There's no fucking way.
No, I don't. I've seen a lot of very genetically gifted individuals that don't look like that. I think that anybody that preaches ancestral living and then posts that to Instagram on their iPhone is not ancestrally living.
Yeah.
So I just kind of, I don't know, it's an eyebrow raiser. And the guy works hard. There's no doubt about that. But at the end of the day, I think that there's a lot to be said. I don't totally poo-poo like a lot of these people because like CrossFit, for example. Like, I have my disagreements with CrossFit and its application to the masses, but CrossFit did an amazing job getting a lot of people off the couch and into fitness in a way that they would not have otherwise if there wasn't like this community waiting for them or clever marketing or whatever the case may be. For its faults, like, they did a great job improving the health of America. Even though it's not enough, it was a step in the right direction. So if Liver King's telling people to drop the processed garbage, go outside and do some lunges in the rain or drag sleds, I'm like, dude, I'm all for it, right? But don't tell me you're natural.
Yeah.
Don't lie about it.
Would you ever eat raw liver?
Yeah, I have.
Is it good?
It's different. It's earthy. It's irony.
Earthy irony. I don't know about that. That does not sound like great to me.
Did you eat it straight up, or did you put like any honey on it?
Straight up.
Nice.
Straight up. And my wife and I have tried the pills, and they're not much better. So.
Really?
Yeah, because it's like a superfood. Like, a lot of the times, I truly believe the Lord gave us like everything we need. It was only when we started doing our own thing that like all this metabolic dysfunction and all this stuff kind of entered into into society. And so, you can find a lot of like multivitamins in nature. And a lot of them do a lot more for you than just taking your everyday for men's. You know what I mean? Liver being one of them. And I'm probably not qualified to talk about all the benefits of that, so don't ask. But but it's you can get a lot of that stuff from food. That's kind of what we preach to our people.
Well, that's the one problem with fitness to me, though. Is like there's so many things out there. Like, what do you believe? Like, I'm just thinking of like a kid who has can't really afford to get anything like nice training or anything like. They're looking, they want to get in shape. Like, what do they follow? Like, what do they read? Because they're getting fed like 10 other different things. They're getting told what to do.
Nonsense. Yeah.
It's crazy. Like, there's really no clear message of what to do.
That's a great question, and I wish more people asked that one. So, like, I'll put it this way: the first thing when I onboard a new coach, when we hire a new coach, the first thing that I take them through, because we have our own curriculum, like, you can't take the teacher out of me. I'm always trying to educate our coaches to be the best they can be because they need to be clones of me. They need to be better than me, in fact. And so the first step in getting them there is teaching them the BS meter, the eye, to be able to see BS from truth, right? And as with most things, are you guys believers?
Yes.
Like, do you guys love the Lord? Okay.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
So I think we can all agree times are getting kind of weird.
Yes,
like
they are.
a lot of people say we're in the end times, right? And so what we're told to do is kind of try everything by the Spirit, right? So like being able to discern, having mature discernment to figure out, what is right, what is virtuous, what aligns with what we know to be true in the character of Jesus, right? And then the things that aren't, because there are pastors freaking having LGBTQ parades in their assemblies, right?
I've seen
like
those.
we have to be able to say, like, that's ridiculous, okay? Yeah. So I'm probably not going to get any fans by saying that.
It's all right, I agree with you.
So that being said, you probably didn't think we were going to get into this today, huh?
No, I didn't. I didn't know we were going to talk about the church.
So, but it's the same filter that we need to use in just about anything. And this is one of the other reasons why we got out of teaching is that, like, they're not teaching how to critically think anymore. Like actually having mature discernment. And I think our kids need that more than any other time ever. So that being said, the first thing I teach my coaches would be the first thing that I would tell my kids to look to is scientific laws and principles. Okay, so those are like our barometer. Laws don't change. Laws aren't opinions. They're not theories. They're not hypotheses. They're not open to interpretation. A law is a law.
They're true.
Okay,
Yeah.
and they're going to be the same today and 200 years from now as they were in the 18th century. It does not matter.
Yeah.
Okay. So the first place we look is physics. Okay. That's like all the stuff I told you about running fast and all that. That's just physics, you know, and I was not paying attention to physics class, hence my grades, but I learned it later in life and applied it to what I do now. The other thing is how the body adapts. So what we have to know, and this is like, it might sound like common sense, but it's not so common. The body is resistant to change and won't adapt to any stress it doesn't experience. So if you don't lift heavy, it's not going to get strong. If you don't run fast, you're not going to get faster. If you don't practice producing force quickly through the ground, you're not going to be fast on the field. So when people are looking at how to get fast and they look to the speed ladder, the first question they should ask is, how much force can I produce through the ground? Well, not very much if all you're doing is tapping and picking it up.
Yep.
Right? So that's not going to help you get out of your stance. It's also not going to help you get up to 22 miles an hour. It's also not going to help you break out of your route, because when you decelerate, you're absorbing, I take that back. The force is going to, the ground is going to produce more force back into your body, right? Every action requires an equal and opposite reaction. That force is going back into you, and you have to be able to redirect. A foot ladder doesn't do that. Right? And so if we look at these laws and these principles, and literally if you just pick up Science and Practice of Training by Zatsiorsky, the first chapter is like basically that's your barometer for, is this training bullshit or not? Mm-hmm. You know, and then you can go as deep as you want. Like, I know that for a long time, you know, Cal State was making their throwers, which are power athletes, they need to be good for one rep, one throw, right? They're having them do circuit training. And they're having them do multiple rep sets of Olympic lifting. And I'm like, okay, does the guy throw 5 times in a meet, or does he throw once? You know, 5 times in rapid succession, or does he need to be good for one time? I think his 1 rep max is the only thing that matters, right? And so, you know, you can't say they're competing values, they're competing special strengths, and they work against each other when they're not sequenced properly. And so that's why you have to kind of know, like, if I want this result, I have to implement this kind of training. In the first place, I would always look, are those immutable laws that never change, no matter the time of day, the person giving the lecture, no matter what. Those are like always the most boring things to learn about, because you're not learning about like technique or peaking or contrast methods or any of the flashy stuff. It's like, okay, Seeley's general adaptation syndrome says, I'm going to stress the body out. It's going to send me into an alarm phase where I have a decrease in readiness. I'm probably not good to train in that window. So I should not go hit the field after heavy legs, right?
Yeah.
And then I'm going to bounce back. I get this adaptation phase, or the resistance phase rather, where the body adapts and it builds a resistance to that stressor because it's smart and it doesn't want to go through that again. It doesn't want to get sore like that again or whatever. And then you actually super compensate and you get over that baseline readiness to where now you're better than you were before you did that stressor, whatever it was that you did, the workout, the lift, the jump, whatever. And that's the time that you want to go perform, because you're better than you were. You basically just did a little mini peak, and then it dies back down to baseline, right? But I got a bunch of kids that just want to spend every day on the field because grind mode all day, never stop, hashtag whatever, you know?
Yeah, D1 bound.
And they wonder why they're exhausted and actually going backwards.
Yeah.
You know, because they're not following those laws that have never changed. So again, like, it's people don't do this for a living, but they just need to read chapter 1 of any like exercise phys textbook, and they, like, if they literally make that their Bible, that would just solve a ton of problems by itself. Additionally, a lot of people are strength coaches in high school, because think about it, like, where do kids pick up weight first? With their dad in their garage, their defensive line coach at their high school, whatever coach is getting paid part-time to devote 80 hours a week to a job that doesn't pay him at the university level, because there are a ton of goobers at the college level as well. There's a reason why my kids go off to college, say their strength conditioning sucks. They come back, we test, and they actually got worse than when they left.
That's crazy.
These are D1 athletes.
Yeah.
They're slower and less explosive and lighter than when they left. This happens all the time, you know?
Oh, yeah, they just run the shit out of you. It's
exactly.
Crazy. They just run you.
So, you know, you have to start thinking critically about everything you're being told to do. And this is kind of a lesson for life. You know, who knows? They'll be burning books here pretty soon. So, you know, I mean, we got to save them while we can, and hopefully preach the right things to our kids.
I agree.
That's a great point. But would you be open to change, though? Because, I mean, they don't know everything about the human body, right? Because aren't things constantly changing? Aren't they always erasing and adding more things to what's true or what's in right now? Because I don't know, you look next 20 years, what are they going to say Are they going to say the same thing they're saying now, or are they going to be saying something completely different? That's where my thoughts are. Just thinking of like what is the actual right way to go about training.
Absolutely.
So I don't know, like, would you be open if something like came down the line, like, hey, this is actually what's going on in your body?
100%. And that's one of the reasons why our programs change so regularly.
Yeah.
Like, we're changing something fundamental about every 8 to 12 weeks.
Okay.
Like, we are constantly adapting. That's why I'm not afraid of, like, any of my coaches. Like, if they were to ever leave, they could go make their own gym and they would still not be Grindhouse, because we're going to continue ascending and changing things. You know what I mean? I'm constantly learning. I only know what I know. I'm really interested in some topics that, like, I have never delved into in the past, and our kids are the beneficiaries of that. So, but at the end of the day, you still have to have, like, even those things, I look at them like, is this worth my time? And is it worth giving to my kids who are paying me a ton of money to get results if there's not a lot backing it? And then other things I got to learn about on my own. I don't wait for research to come out to try some new things too, because some things, you know, if I wait for the research to come out, everybody else will be doing it too.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. You got to look for yourself. Okay. I guess we got time for one more question here.
Well, I have a little bit more time than that if you guys want more.
Oh, okay. Sweet,
yeah,
sweet.
We're good.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just thinking, just as someone like you started a business, what was like the hardest thing to get it going? Like the most difficult thing you had to move around, you had to figure out what to do. Like would it be buying the equipment or?
The equipment thing was, I had to be patient. I didn't actually go into debt for any of it. So that's one thing I'm really proud of is, I didn't sell my soul for a bunch of squat racks and air bikes. You know what I mean? And a lot of people do that. And again, that's like the financial freedom part of it. I got to make decisions for myself, not having to worry about a lease payment or something like that, right? So that's like one of the biggest things I always tell like aspiring gym owners when they ask is like, pay cash for everything. It wasn't super, like, it was slow. I just got to the point where I feel like we're really comfortable, you know? But it took a while. But to answer your question, I think the biggest thing that was hard for me to figure out was work-life balance. Because when you're in a service-based industry where your life is really not your own. Like my life is for these kids, you know? But in reality, what I had to learn was my life really belongs to my family first, and making sure that they're good so that we're good, so that I can be more effective in the gym with this extended family of mine. Right. And so being able to separate myself from caring sometimes, turning off my phone when it's appropriate and things like that, and like being able to recharge ultimately helped me way more than any courses I ever took or anything like that. And it was just as simple as having discipline to just say no sometimes, you know, and getting out of the garage was a great step in the right direction. It's really hard having this in the same place you live, because it's like tempting to always go out there and take on whatever, but it's not always best for your personal life. And I think boundaries are really, really important. It's hard for me because when you care, you'll do anything, but sometimes you have to say no, understanding that like it'll save you for the next person that comes around, you know?
So you don't really believe like make this your entire life. If you're going to dive into something, don't like to find more of a balance, to have like another side of yourself that you can kind of go away from.
I think the balance is important, and not like in a hippie way. I'm not the guy that's like looking for equilibrium all the time, because I do think that there's a time to make calculated risks and really like stress yourself out intentionally in a way that won't like, but you got to know it's not going to be forever, you know, like we're going to push now, you know, and then we're going to dial it back later and kind of sift things out. And Lord knows I'm probably the biggest risk taker I know. And it's worked out so far. Eventually I'll fall flat on my face and I'll learn from it. But I think the biggest thing is I'd rather be ultra effective at one thing than be spread way too thin with a bunch of other things. And this has come up in my own personal life and with people close to me recently, is I don't want to be a generalist. I want to be really effective at one thing. And I know that for me personally, for me to be effective as a coach, as a leader, as a second father to a lot of our kids, and I don't say that lightly, you know, in order for me to give more in the hours that I spend at the gym, I have to really guard the hours I have outside of the gym. And some people say that's selfish or whatever. I just know that like, I'm really intense. And it's really easy to turn that into kind of what we were talking about. If you're too intense all the time, it burns you out really quick. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I got to take care of me. And again, it's all for the better of the people that use our service. You know what I mean? And my coaches and being able to serve them. My focus is turned so much more towards building badass coaches than it is building badass athletes. My badass coaches now develop my badass athletes. They are, we're getting close with a couple of them, like 1-to-1 clones with me. And then I'm like, all right, now pass me up. Like go do better things than me. Yeah. You know what I mean? But ultimately for them to be the best they can be, I got to be really fresh for them and be open to whatever they need of me within the hours that they have me.
Okay, if you were to look at JP right here, John Paul, how would you get his lower body stronger?
I have no ass. I never have had one.
He's always struggled with squatting. His ass is super flat. What do you do?
I always thinking this is the epitome of peak male performance sitting right next to me.
Oh gosh, stop it.
Well, first thing, shave the neck hair.
Yeah.
Okay. That's or start wearing a turtleneck.
Okay.
One of the two.
Yes.
Or grow your own. And then you said lower body, ass?
Lower body.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to give you the Booty Blaster 3000 workout.
Okay.
This has worked really well for me. You ready for it? Okay. It's going to be about 200 reverse hypers a day. Can you do that?
Yeah.
He could do it.
I mean, yeah, the reverse hypers, me and them, we don't really get along, but I think we can grow a relationship.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, honest to God, with a lot of that stuff, man, it's just, it's pulling more than you push. And depending on how big the discrepancy is, that'll kind of dictate, like people arbitrarily say you need to pull 2-to-1 that you're pushing and stuff like that. I know that for a lot of people, their legs aren't where they want them to be, or they're not. Do you still play?
Yeah.
Are you playing right now?
Yes, I am.
What position?
Right guard.
Oh, dude. Okay. So your ass needs to be your strong point too.
Yeah.
So the hips, hamstrings, and lower back, and so hips are glutes to me. That whole glute complex is the same. So I would say, like, with the limited equipment that you guys have on the hill, find every way to destroy your hamstrings that you possibly can. I love rack pulls and I love back extensions for your glutes, and then for your lower back, any pulling variations. I love like good mornings, RDLs, things like that. Those will get you golden, but it takes time too. And you got to eat accordingly to it, know. But the reality of it is this: those are your go muscles, and so you start addressing those. And if you've never done it before, you might need more than the average bear if you're, genetically you just have a flat.
Yeah, both my parents don't have asses.
That's okay. That's totally okay. It's like we've trained people with no calves to have calves. You know what I mean? It's just you probably need more than the average person. But the good news is this. You take care of all those things. If that's really your lowest hanging fruit, your performance will go through the roof, dude.
Yeah, because I feel like my lower body's always been what's holding me back. But it's my tenacity and tenaciousness that still keeps me on the field.
100%. So if you mesh that with a physically dominant body, you're going to wreck, dude.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Because I got other kids that are just physical freaks, but they don't have it from the neck up. You know, like they're just they whine to mom about everything. And
There's
I'm
so
like,
many of those kids.
Oh geez, geez. So, anyways, I'm like, that's in our program, man. Those are the things that we hit. I mean, like. The kids are like, what can I do at Buddy Exchanger? Like, what can I do on my own and stuff? I'm like, well, you can hit unlimited hamstrings, calves, arms, and shoulders, and abs, And those are the things that are not going to wreck you in here. Like you can come in, you'll be relatively fresh. So I'm like, no one likes training the hamstrings, but it's like the best thing for you. So
got to get you doing the booty blaster.
Yeah, that's it.
Booty blaster 3000.
So what is it? 200 hypers, and then is that it, or is there anything?
Well, it'll be specialized. So like, talk about rep schemes, right? Yeah. We want to hit all rep schemes. So we're just addressing all the special strengths. If mass is what you require, because a bigger muscle has a larger propensity to be an explosive muscle, right? We need to, if we want to increase the cross-sectional area of that ass cheek, right?
Yeah.
What we got to do is we got to train all the rep ranges. So do something moderately heavy, 4 to 7 reps probably, multiple sets, and then so that'll be intense. And then you hit something that's like kind of bodybuilder-ish, I guess, like 8 to 15 reps, something like that, and then finish her off with something that's like super high rep. I like hypers because they don't make you sore.
Yeah.
Like you can smash 300 reps of hypers and you walk away from it feeling like you could go another 300 reps. But all the while, it's tractioning your lower back. It's rehabbing you while it's also strengthening that guy on the upswing. And I know not every facility. Do you guys have those at BC?
Yeah, we do.
Oh, dude. Then yeah, that needs to be your best friend.
Yeah.
No excuses.
No excuses, Paul.
Next time I see you, you better have some junk in your trunk.
Okay. You know what? Yeah.
Yes.
I'm gonna.
We got to go to Grindhouse now.
Absolutely.
We got to go to Grindhouse.
I'd love to host you guys, man.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
I guess, hey, you converted us. You converted us. We're going to Grindhouse.
Just got to be honest with people. But you guys know the expectation now, right?
Yeah. No, I love how the honesty, that is such a big key in it. I feel like no one else does it. Like you said, no one else in Bakersfield, because everyone will lie to you. I've been to other places, just not the same. Like you said earlier, like, yeah, we'll go out to the park, pay $50 a month or whatever it is, and do some ladders, and that's it.
And that stuff's super subjective. It's like they'll tell you. I live right next to Liberty High School, so I drive by Liberty Park every day, and I see like the soccer gurus and all those people, you know. And I'm like, they're telling people like, "Hey, your kid looks faster." According to who? You know, and like according to what measurement? So that's a big thing that we do is we record and measure everything. We truly believe that which doesn't get measured doesn't get improved, and we collect all that data to not only make sure that we're on point, but also that the athlete is meeting our expectations. They're doing what it takes both in the weight room, applying themselves while they're in there, and also taking care of recovery and stuff outside. And when things aren't adding up, we're like, hey, you're not progressing like you should be. We can look back at the data and figure out what went wrong, because we know the correlations, we know the KPIs that contribute and all that. And so a lot of places don't do that because it puts the coaches on notice. A lot of coaches know it will expose them if they bring a laser out there. Right?
Oh, I hate lasers.
So they'll stick to their stopwatch, where they can start it late and click it on time and say you ran a 4.2.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I can't tell you how many kids from Liberty, right? These are parents that really give a shit. Like they care, and God bless them, they care so much. But they put their money in the wrong places, whatever. They trust the wrong guy. And the kid comes in for his testing day 1, to run a 40-yard dash. And I go, so have you ever ran one before? And he goes, yeah, I ran it with Coach so-and-so at the park. And I'm like, what'd you run? And he's like, a 4.38. I'm like,
sure.
Wow. You know, let's see what you run on my laser. It's 4.9.
Yeah.
You know, and he's 150 pounds soaking wet. And that turns a lot of kids off. Guess what? We don't want them. We don't want them because they don't want to work for what we've identified they need.
So that goes into the BS meter. What is like an indicator that this guy's bullshitting you, or person?
A coach?
No, just like I don't know. You said BS meter. Like if there's a kid trying to come in, like you can kind of pick up if they're going to be about it or not, right? Is that kind of what you mean when you say BS meter?
It goes both ways. I was kind of talking about like coaches, you know, like because this is a social media age, so we're following these dudes on Instagram. They got a bunch of clout and followers and whatever. They might have 80,000 followers, but be peddling bullshit, right? And kids don't know the difference, so that's why I say like develop that now. And especially if you're going to make this your profession, develop that now, so you don't end up in the same hole they're in. You know, but yeah, we deal with it with kids too. I turn kids away in the consultation all the time. Recently, more often than I would like. But you know, at the end of the day, I'm not going to sacrifice what I've worked so hard to build for one more person. You know, that really doesn't belong or will be a cancer or something like that. So the indicator would be number one, coachability. Like, okay, so this is like hiring 101. You never hire someone that badmouths their last employer. Okay, if you guys ever want to get a job, you're in an interview, do not talk about the last person you worked for, okay? Because if someone talks shitty about that person, they're going to talk shitty about you, right? And so with kids, if they're talking crap about their coach and saying, oh, it's because the coach's son does this, and this, what they've done is they've shunted all ownership over their own career to this excuse that they're not on the field because their parents. That's the parent that's approaching the coach after the game and dogging them, you know, like, why isn't my kid getting more playing time and all that stuff? I'm like, that is a cancerous home I don't want to bring into mine. Yeah. You know what I mean? And we deal with that a lot. It's not always the kid's fault, but I'm like, hey, if they're a product of their parents, I'm not going to be the one to fix that, you know? The other one would be, this is going to be a weird one, and it sounds super aggressive, but kids that are overly timid, right?
Timid?
Yeah. So like we get a lot of kids that are, we even get a lot of non-athletes that want to train with our athletes like athletes because they need confidence and things like that. They want a better body. They want to see their abs, whatever. I'm like, okay, I'm going to train you like a linebacker and it's going to work out, you know? And we have a lot of success doing that. But some kids, whether they play sports or not, if they're not coachable, because like if I just get vibes that they're not a great communicator, it's probably not going to work. Because the coach-athlete relationship is sacred. And it's like there has to be back and forth where they tell me, like, hey, this is what's going on. And I've got this game coming up. I need to be peaked for this. Or maybe I'm not feeling great today, whatever. we're professionals, so we modify things on the fly according to how the athlete presents themselves to us. But the kid who's just like a mute, doesn't contribute anything to our culture, doesn't bring anything to the house, like that's tough sometimes. What we try to get out of them is like they have to have a real attachment to their goals or nothing will happen. And so the people that we don't take on in that regard are like the ones that, like a red flag is when they don't know what they want. Like, why are you here? I don't know. I'm like, well, are you here because your dad wants you here or because you want to be here? Because you're going to be the one training, not dad. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's a huge one for us is like, you can't be doing this for anyone but yourself because no one else is going to be showing up.
Yep.
So it's, I mean, I'm sure you guys play sports. I'm sure you know a lot of kids, teammates that did it more for the expectation placed on them by family or whatever reason, because they just enjoy being on the football team, whatever, right? I need solid goals. I need someone to say, I am brutally slow. Please get me fast. You know, it's that emotional connection that ultimately drives the intensity, the results, the intention behind their training. And if a kid's just kind of wishy-washy, like, I'm just doing this because I know it's something I need to do, then, okay, dude, you should go pay a $5 membership at some other gym where you can just do whatever you want, but please don't get hurt.
Yeah. I love everything you've said in this podcast. This is great. I think we're good on time here. What are we
110.
at? 110. Okay, let's do a nice little exit song. I'm thinking Home Sweet Home. We haven't played it yet. Motley Crue, great song.
This was a great podcast.
Yeah, dude.
Thanks for coming on.
This is awesome.
Blake. This was a great time.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
All right, hold on. No, we're still playing Hell's Bells here. Nope. Hold on. We're trying to get the technology better. We're looking for a guy to edit our videos now.
Oh, dude, if you find one, let me know. It's the worst.
Yeah, we like put something on Craigslist, and it's just
like
a bunch of random.
And post months later. It's so bad.
Oh, dude, it's like a nightmare to try and get these videos up. Here we go. It's not a nightmare for you people, though. We can't.
You just need to sit back and listen.
Please fucking listen, and if not, go work out at Grindhouse because this guy is a stud. Be ready to work, though.
Yep.
Thanks for coming on, Blake.
Thank you.
Thank you.